Thank you all. It's so great to see all of you this afternoon. And again, thank you to Insight for inviting me and all the curators, Felipe, Andrea, thank you so much. I'm going to start by posing some questions, what I'm calling questions that persist. We have a crisis of housing, yet as architects, our problem is bigger than the design of just housing. We have to answer the more complex question, what is dwelling? And along the way, we have to ask or answer the why and the what. So I define dwelling as the relationships between people and the environment, relationships that are both individual and shared. It's more than the design of a bedroom or a kitchen. Dwelling encompasses how we live with others, how we live with our communities, how we live within cities, and how we live within our landscapes. It's way more than just a bedroom. It's how we sleep, our expectations around privacy. It's how warm or cold we like our beds. As architects, we have to work with developers to match our projects with the finances. And with almost every developer that I've worked with in my practice, they refer to housing units as products, where they decide what the living room is, kitchens, how many bedrooms, how many baths, and that is now defining how we dwell, at least in the United States. And these housing norms are now overtaking the world. As architects, we also have to work with planners and planning regulations to define the public realms. Our zoning ordinances will define front, side, and rear yard setbacks, with a normative decision implied that the front is on the street-facing side of the house. When I have guests that come from China, they don't understand why our fabrics look the way they do, because in China, all of the dwelling units face south, and the street is less important. So the civic environment, as we understand it, is very different in China. Zoning regulations intentionally avoid describing how internal activities of a house are organized. As a result, you, the students, we, the architects, are, I think, the last advocates for dwelling, for the diversity of collective and cultural practices. Dwelling is a continuum. It doesn't stop at the border of your unit. It doesn't stop at the border of the house. It doesn't stop at the property line. Our job as architects and designers is to design a fabric of dwelling. And as architects, we can only design if we teach ourselves to see dwelling every day and to see everyday dwelling. So how do we embrace the diversity of how dwelling is practiced? Dwelling is temporal. People are continually reading an environment and deciding how to inhabit or occupy a space, a form, to suit their emerging needs. This happens on a daily basis, seasonally, stage of life, generational. At the time when our readings no longer fit a place, changes are made. We rearrange the furniture, we remodel, we add, or sometimes we have to move. As the Mexicali project shows, and as we all know intuitively, changing our dwelling environment is inevitable. We have the ability to adapt our circumstances, and in some cases, we can adapt our circumstances to our need. So if that's the case, does it really matter what architects design? So clearly, I'm going to go back. Clearly, I'm going to say yes. It does matter. Rather than depending solely on our human ability to adapt, can we design housing that offers more ways to accommodate changing interpretations of dwelling? To answer this, designers need to turn away from market approaches and instead look to nurturing dwelling as use. Choices and changes matter. In design, dwelling must encompass more than just programs and lifestyles, because these descriptions are too static to really describe how we dwell. The creativity in dwelling is found in the ever-changing discourses that residents have between their physical spaces and how they want to live. Dwelling is learned. We learn from our past experiences as part of households and observers of others. We shift and redirect our practices based on new awarenesses, needs, and desires. These experiences not only guide how we choose to live, but also predispose our responses to particular spaces, forms, and organizations. So every setting has a structure that is interpreted and read. A dwelling structure must easily give up a particular reading and take on a new one. So in this case, like this bay window, it can hold a desk, it can hold a sofa, and then maybe a table. Or any of our yards can be used for a car, a picnic table, or a garden. I said earlier, at a time when a reading no longer fits a place, changes are made. When arranging is no longer enough, remodeling and adding are the next steps that allow households to stay within a community rather than move. Can we as architects support this? Yes, let me illustrate a few ways. For example, I think designers can embed capacity by providing dimension for choice and change. Let's look at the initial structure of two suburban fabrics. On the left is Levittown, built in the 1950s, and on the right is a California suburb built in the 1980s. The Levittown house is small, but it's on a big lot. The Clayton house is big, but it's on a very small lot, defined by its setbacks. So Levittown was built at a time when land was cheap, Clayton when land was more expensive. Over time, residents in Levittown have modified their houses, expanding into the front, to the side, and to the back, and they still have enough room for a front yard and a backyard. This area of change or capacity is shown very lightly in red on that slide on the right. In Clayton, the only places for change are inside small nooks on either side of the fireplace or in the bay windows. Another way that we can build capacity is looking at how we actually build the structural assembly of a building. On the left is San Francisco. It's balloon-framed, wood-framed balloon framing, so they're very tall, vertical walls. The structural walls are parallel, perpendicular to the street, so they run from the front of the lot to the back of the lot. Charleston is immediately to the right. The framing is just in the opposite direction. The bearing walls run parallel to the street, and they have one non-load-bearing wall that sits right on the property line that runs from the front to the back. And then on the far right, Clayton again, where the framing is really just done room by room. In San Francisco, this framing has supported changes in the non-load-bearing direction of the house, as well as openness from the front to the back of the lot and privacy from side to side between neighbors. In Charleston, the change is along the back, along the fireplace, and between the main living rooms and the porch that sits on the side yard of the houses. There's also a lot of generosity in the depth of the lot, and so those fabrics have just changed tremendously over time. And in Clayton, again, on the right, very little change is possible. We don't have a crystal ball as designers. We can't predict changes and choices, but we can recognize that every setting is reinterpreted and reused. Understanding that the initial structure that we design of every setting both limits and reveals the potential for future change and choice. As we reflect on the Mexicali project and its ambitions, it seems there are just so many, maybe too many questions that still linger. You'd think we would have figured it out by now. But when it comes to housing design and the production that we are now with, we seem fossilized. And I posit that as architects, we can only answer these questions if we teach ourselves to see dwelling. So I would encourage all of you, all of the students in the room, to do this. Technology has overtaken our 20th century, 21st century housing, the way we deal with water, streets, transport, construction, HVAC, have allowed developers to build the same thing everywhere, and designers to think less about the dwelling practices and local differences. I believe if we build more, we should expect to get more. Mexicali is an experiment. It reminds us that we should not be far away from asking questions about and thinking about what we need to learn. And all of you, I encourage you to continue to try new things, to innovate, to explore, because we still have a lot of work to do to get it right. Thank you.